Hi, I'm Brent from EOA TV, and we bring you this interview and the interviews earlier of the Queen candidates because we want to support the over 100-year tradition of the Eastern Oregon Livestock Show. We're trying to bring you something that perhaps you've not seen in the past, and hopefully we'll be able to bring you these interviews in the future. These are made possible by those businesses that regularly support EOA TV, and if you're interested in being one of those sponsors that helps us be able to bring you this type of content, please reach out to us. Now enjoy the interview.
Welcome to EO Talks, Eastern Oregon's very own talk show, only here on EO Alive.
They call me Scotty. I was just a little guy. We was up at the neighbors. They was playing cards. I was about 1 year old, and they had a little Scotty dog on the floor. And the little dog and I were playing, and all at once this little dog peed. And my brother was there, and he said, "Oh, Scotty dog peed." And so they wiped it up, and pretty quick I peed. "Oh, this other Scotty peed," he said. That stuck with me. I was born in Burns, Oregon. I lived on a ranch 6 miles from town. I walked to an old country one-room school 1.5 miles to school. And then I went 3 years in high school in Burns, and my folks moved to Union. And so I've done my senior year in Union. And when I graduated from high school, I enrolled in the School of Hard Knocks. I went out and got a job. Been working ever since. Living on a ranch, I grew up, we'd done everything with horses and worked cattle. So I knew what a ranch was and how to farm. And so my first job, when I got out of high school, I went out and worked for different ranchers around, and I worked for loggers. When I got to building road with caterpillars, and from there, I was building logging road into West Eagle Meadows, and for the mill down here in Union, and we got snowed out. And so I went down to the mill the next week to talk to one of the guys I knew out in the log yard, and he was dumping the logs into the pond with just a winch system. And he hooked it up, dumped the logs, picked the trailer up, set it on the truck. The driver just drove off. He didn't let him unhook it. And it tore the booms down and ripped the house down. I was and the boss came out and he says, "Can you fix that?" And I said, "Yes." I knew how to work and do that kind of a job. So I went to work at the sawmill. And when I got that done, he says, my mechanic quit. He got the grader motor all tore down. "Can you put that back together?" And I said, "You got a book on it?" And he said, "Yes, I can do that." So I rebuilt it, and then I rebuilt another piece of equipment. They didn't have a welder. I knew how to weld. I taught myself to weld as a young fella. And so I welded for him and worked on everything. And finally, come spring, they came and said, "Well, we can go get your cat. It's up at Sumter. Can you drive the truck?" "Yeah, I can drive a truck." So we went to Sumter, and I loaded the truck on Saturday, took it to the woods to go to work Monday. And Sunday, the boss called me and said, our doggone foreman dropped the set works on his foot and broke it. can you come and take his place for a while? And I said, yeah, I guess I can. So I just went back and worked at the mill, and it was a month or so before he got back to work. And Pat says, well, we can find cat skinners, but we can't find millwrights. I'll just give you a raise and you stay here. So there's where I was at. And I was working 6 days a week. And I was there for 20 years, 6 days a week. And of course, I always took opportunity. Anytime I've seen an opportunity to learn something, I did. And they didn't have an electrician. So I got me a code book, I studied it, and I took on the job of doing all the electrical work in the mill. And when I went there, the mill was just a sawmill and a planer. And when I left there was automatic boilers and chippers and debarkers and stackers and dry kilns, and I wired it all. And I'd been doing this for about 5 years, and the electrical inspector came by, and he asked, he went to the office, and he asked Pat. They went through and checked it, and he says, who's your electrician? Oh, he says, Scotty. Has he got a license? Oh, Pat said, I don't know. So they called me in. You got a license? No. Oh, this is the best job in a mill that we've ever seen. And we're just going to give you a journeyman's electrician's license. And they did. And so I worked there at the mill, and well, I ended up, I was the foreman the last 10 years. And Pat sold the mill. Well, I didn't get along with the new people about it. Them and I just didn't see eye to eye. And so I said, I'm done. I'll go get me another job. And so Pat, they were still running the truck end, and I stopped by his office and told him I couldn't do that no more. And he said, you know, Alan Chase and I have been talking about starting a truck business in LeGrand. Why don't we just put a machine shop on it? You come and run it. You be part of the group. I said, okay. So we had a machine shop, of course, at the mill. We rebuilt and built all kinds of stuff. And so the three of us built a business we called Eagle Truck and Machine. And that was in 77. In 79, a local logger came in and said, can you build me a motorized radio-controlled slack-pulling carriage? I said, I don't know. Have to think about it. And let me see. Well, I said, I got to have a back surgery next week. While I'm down, I'll just draw up some what I might think we might be able to do. So, of course, in high school, I done three things right. I learned how to read and understand what I read. I took all the math I could, and I took 1 year of mechanical drawing. So I could sit down and draw anything up to scale I wanted. And so I drew what I probably thought there in it took me about a month to get back. And I called Irv and said, well, I drew up what I think will work. And he came in and looked at my drawing. He says, I'll give you $10,000 to start today. So I built the carriage. And we took it to the mountain, and it was 26 below zero that morning. And I stood by the fire and watched that thing run flawless until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And the brake on their yarder broke, dropped the carriage in the bottom of the canyon. So we hauled it back to the shop, and I repaired it, and it went back to work. And that's how I started building carriages, right there. From there, oh, well, I think I've designed 12 different sizes and models since that day. But, you know, everything just kind of fell in place. And then it was 1998 that I spun off from that company, and we started Eagle Carriaging Machine. I built my own shop, and because I was paying rent and everything in the other shop, we were a company. When I was 81, I turned it over to Sam to run, and then I just came home, took care of the ranch, and last year I turned it all over to Sam, and I retired at 91. You put it on the line, you go out 3,000 feet, and you turn the slack puller on, and it pulls a skid line through it and drops it down to the crew. They attach the logs. They pick them logs up to the carriage, and it opens up, and it hauls them into the landing. And we got them all over the world. I've put them into New Zealand and Australia, Tasmania, yeah, Philippines. We set up the fence on the Mexican border with them. We've taken bridges out. We've taken dams out. We've put them dams in, and we've put bridges in. I've heard them using them in all kinds of different places. Just amazing what they do with them. When I was 79, I got a call from one of my, it was a contractor, and he said they was building a clock in a mountain down in Texas. And they wanted a special carriage built to do it. And so I flew down there and looked at this. It was a 400-foot bluff, rock bluff. They wanted to go in at the base of it and drill a 12-foot diameter hole in 500 feet and drill straight up 500 feet and put a clock in the mountain. A clock. A 10,000-year clock, they called it. And it took a special machine to carry all their equipment out. And of course, this is expensive equipment. And they had to carry it out and drop it down. And I built one for them. If you want to see it or know about it, just look on Google, 10,000-year clock. It'll tell you all about it. Well, I got married in 53. And it was our neighbor right above us, Charlotte Baker. Or Charlotte Cadwell was her name. And I purchased the ranch the first on 53. And so I worked at the ranch, and I worked out, and I raised 2 boys, and my boys were hard workers. They could do all the ranch work. In fact, during in high school. They came to me when they was about mid-high school and said, "We need a project for the summer." And I said, "Well, when I first came here, I grew up and built a squeeze chute for my cattle. And I made it out of wood and metal. And I said, I'll just take that to my upper pasture, and I'll buy the material. You make me one all steel, and if you do a good job, you can sell them." Oh, good. They like that. I tell you, those kids, I helped them build the jig, and got them the metal, showed them what had to be done and how to read the print. And they was out there at 5 o'clock every morning till dark every night, and they built mine, and they sold a half a dozen of them. Yes. But they were good workers, just good, they grew up with me. All I did was work. And just good workers. My older boy, of course, I give them, when they was were the little guys, I give them each a cow or a heifer. They showed it in the stock show. And the next year they showed him as a cow and a calf. And then of course, they kept those in their herd. And, well, if they had a steer, they'd probably trade the steer to me for a heifer, because they wanted to build their herd. and when they left home, they had more cows than I did. That's where it was. And my older boy, when he was in high school, he decided he wanted to milk some cows and sell the milk. So he bought him a milk cow. He milked her. We put a refrigerator down in the milk house, and he took care of all the milk. Through high school, he milked her day and night. And the next year, he wanted two. So he sold another steer or two and bought him another milk cow. So all through high school, there he was. He had money to burn. He had, when they meet 16, they had automobiles, they could buy them. So, no, that was a good learning experience. And I'm watching them grow up, you could just see, this is what kids need, is something to do and have a responsibility. And that's what got me into helping with the 4-H and FFA, because that's what started me buying at the auction. And so I would go to the auction and buy, well, sometimes I overdone it, but I got a jacket in there from the stock show. It says on the front of it, 1998 top buyer, auction buyer. Yes. But I enjoyed watching the kids and going down and seeing them and going around. And I sold my cows. I sold steers out of mine that were first place steers. I enjoyed that. Stay out of the alcohol and the drugs, and find yourself something to do to keep you busy. Now that's what I see. If they got busy and something to do, they don't get in trouble. When I was 12 years old, I was sitting on a dump rake behind an old horse raking hay. Every morning you got up and went out and fed the hogs, milked the cows, and you done that before you ate your breakfast. And then you went to the field and went to work. So I just grew up that you work. And I thought it was good for me. That's what I thought it was good for me. Yeah, the only thing that I would have hoped worked better was I lost my wife 30 years ago to a heart attack. And I wish that didn't happen, for sure. I'd like to have her here today. But you take life as it comes.